I want to just start by saying there's some myths about transgender people. There are some prejudices against transgender people. Right now, everyone is very familiar with the concept of a gender reveal party. In fact, there have been a lot of people who've gotten in trouble because their theatrics have caused all sorts of problems. It is interesting to me that at a gender reveal party, the balloon never bursts or the confetti cannon never goes off and shoots out green, right, or yellow, right? It's either blue or pink, and when the baby is born, the doctor or the nurse usually announces it's a boy or it's a girl. They never say it's something in between, or I don't know what this is. That would create a lot of anxiety in the hearts of the people in that room. For transgender people, though, it's not simple. It's not binary. It's not it's a boy or it's a girl. That's not the end of the story. Transgender people are other. And when a transgender person realizes that they are other, they may begin acting differently. And they may choose different names or different pronouns than may have been assigned to them. And the way they then begin to socially transition is a way for them to take control of their own identity. They may begin to dress differently. They may begin to change their hairstyle or begin applying makeup or not applying makeup, as the case may be. And it's important for friends and allies and parents to respect those choices. So when we, throughout this panel, discuss kids who are pre or post or inter-transitional, we're always going to refer to them using their current names, their current pronouns. So for example, when we talk about Gretchen's daughter, Jordan, we'll refer to Jordan as she or her, even though when Jordan was born, the doctor said, it's a boy, because we want to respect who Jordan is, and so it's respectful. I also want to add the fact that there is a lot of transphobia, even within the LGBTQ plus community sometimes. And trans people frequently feel that in an acute sort of way. And so we want to be very respectful, and we want to understand that transphobia, which is rooted in fear, can sometimes manifest itself as anger, because I don't know what to do with you, and I don't know what box to put you in, and it confuses me, and it makes me feel dumb, and so I'm going to get angry at you, which doesn't make any sense, except it kind of does. Like, I understand why people do it, and that's an explanation, but certainly not an excuse. So we want to eliminate as much as possible any kind of rhetoric that could inflame that phobia, with the understanding that fear oftentimes turns into hatred, and hatred oftentimes turns into violence, and we want to quash any of that that we are certainly able to. So for those reasons, we're going to ask all of our panelists, and you, if you're sending questions in, we're going to ask you to respect these individuals by using their new and appropriate names and pronouns. Okay, having said that, let me introduce you to these marvelous women. At the far end is Gretchen Schmidt. Gretchen, you're a nurse and a nursing instructor outside of Baton Rouge, right? And you've been married to Toby for 26 years, and you together have 4 children, and they are like, the oldest is 32 and the youngest is 11. That seems like a lot to me. But welcome, and we'll hear a little bit more of your story in a moment. Gayla Lindsay has 3 grown children: Morgan, Miranda, and Mallory. And you got the M's down.
Yes, I say ma.
And they all like musical theater.
Yes, the whole family does.
Which seems appropriate because they all have M names. So Mallory, Miranda, and Morgan like musical theater. This seems like a tongue twister. You're empty nest now, is that correct?
Yes, just recently.
Recently empty nest. Isn't it marvelous?
Yeah, my husband and
I
I've been
continued
married
with the M themes there.
31 years, and now we have an empty nest.
Cassie Bullock. Cassie has 3 grown children. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Cassie is a speaker and author, and you graduated from Texas Women's University. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And you live in Arlington, Texas, and you have 3 sons.
I do. Yes.
Do they all of their names start with the same letter?
They do not.
Okay.
They had the habit of wanting to change at some point in their life to go by their middle name or go by their first name. So we have Hunter, and I have Latine, and I have Wesley.
Okay.
So nothing
Those
rhyming
are
or
very Texas masculine names too, by the way. Did you notice that? That's a very and then Camille. Camille, you served the Broadway Church in Lubbock, Texas for 10 years as the outreach minister.
Yes.
And you were married to Dyke. Yes. And you have 4 children, Zach, Luke, Drew, Toby.
Yes. Which
are like really curt names, right? You could just, and they almost sound angry when you say them in a row like that.
When I say them, they sometimes say.
Okay, so ladies, tell me, when did your children come out? Who wants to go first? Let's just
I can go first.
All right. So when did you have one child who's come out?
Yes. And he was about 12 or 13. And he came to me and said that he was lesbian. And so then several years later, he came to me and said, I'm going to be called Luke, and I want you to use, he pronouns and things like that. So
12.
Yes.
And were you surprised when it happened?
I was, but it was kind of, but not really. Not really. It wasn't a huge surprise or anything, but
sometimes a mother knows.
Yeah. It was, it wasn't that big of a surprise.
And Gretchen, how old was your child?
14 the first time, came out. She said she was gay, and then about a year later, said trans. So.
And Camille?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Cassie.
What my son was about 14 when we had the first conversation about it, and it was. Well, I didn't know what trans was, or that you could do that. He always acted like a tomboy. Had 2 older brothers, and why wouldn't he be a tomboy and play in the dirt and always want to wear boy clothes? But to go a step further was a surprise, and I didn't know what I didn't know.
And Gayla?
Yes, Morgan was also always a tomboy from birth. The boy clothes and boy things, and just preferred all things more masculine. And so it was not really that much of a surprise when around sometime between the age of 18 to 21, he would try to show us that there was such a thing as transgender. And we obviously pushed that aside, thinking, oh, it's a phase. The internet is filling your head with lots of things. You'll be okay. I was always told he'll grow out of it, So he transitioned himself after he had moved to Florida and was out of the house at about the age of 23. And so now living authentically as himself.
So how did it change the way you parented once this knowledge had surfaced? How did it change the way you interacted with your child as a mom?
I needed time. It was a really, especially when he came and said that he was trans, it was hard for me to be able to handle that, mainly because I didn't really know anything about it. And so that was kind of difficult. But, you know, when he said, I want to be called Luke, and I'm going to use he pronouns, I just wanted you to know, because we were headed to a dinner and I'm going to tell our family tonight. I just wanted you to know. And I said, well, Luke, I love you unconditionally. I didn't say Luke. I said, well, I love you unconditionally. And I just don't know if I can call you Luke right now. And, you know, he taught me more in the next thing that he said than I've been taught by anyone, I think. And he said, Mom, I don't expect you to. It's okay. It's okay. He showed me grace. He knew that I needed time. And that statement and his grace towards me, that's all that we all just need that. We all just need that.
I can say the same thing. Morgan was so patient with us and just has given us time. It was hard to change the pronouns, and sometimes, I mean, we slip up, but once we got to know him and see him more, it was very easy to see that Morgan is a boy. And so he didn't have to change his name. He has a given name, and he's thanked us several times for thanks for my name.
I think that the parenting itself didn't change. How I looked at life and at my children changed. The fact that he was very, very gracious and patient with me and all of our family for pronouns and for the name change, because it was a entirely different name. Very willing to answer questions. Very accepting of the fact that we needed some time. And it was awkward for a while because there was a time where he had transitioned at school, but not at home with family. And we didn't know that until later. And once I said to him, you don't have to live two lives anymore. You can be Wesley, both places. That was like the world opened up for us and for him, just in so many ways, and just showing the acceptance and saying, you know, affirming who he really was and not trying to fit him into our expectation that he had lived.
With Jordan also, she was very thankful for her name. I was very thankful too, because changing the name would have been hard. Changing the pronouns was hard enough. And Jordan also gave us plenty of grace. Jordan was, as long as you didn't do it on purpose, it was just a slip up, you know, those were fine. But there were always people who, you know, made a point, you know, in the world to not use the correct pronoun, and that's what upset her the most. And our family dynamics, teenagers are hard anyway. So, you know, a trans teenager, you know, oh goodness gracious. So you know, they think they know everything anyway. So, you know, that was hard, just parenting a teenager in general. And then as far as family goes, I would say Jordan's little sister handled it the best. She was, I think, 7, and we were very worried about how she was going to react. And we sat down and we told her what transgender meant and what Jordan was going to be. You know, we were going to call her her, and she said, "Oh, good. I've been wanting a sister. Okay, is that it? is that it? Is it all? That's it? Okay.
What are we having for dinner?
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on." So, I say we could learn a lot from Abigail.
But that brings up an interesting question, because it doesn't just affect your relationship with your child. Your children have siblings and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And how did this revelation impact your family?
For us, at first, we just kept it in our household. You know, we didn't tell anybody else at first, and we worked through that.
How long did you just keep it inside?
Just a month, just about a month.
I'm glad you're here, Jordan. 'Cause
Yeah.
your mom doesn't remember anything.
I know.
Apparently.
I told her Jordan needs to go sit in front of me so she can flag me. So only about a month, and then we went and told my parents, her grandparents, and they were very gracious. And like us, they had lots of questions, but just that unconditional love. And my dad, I remember my dad saying, "Well, are we still going hunting tomorrow?" And Jordan said, "Yeah, okay. I'll pick you up in the morning."
Okay. What else? Who else wants to share?
Our family, we probably kept it in our family, immediate family, a year. And what helped us go beyond family was a friend who had a transgender son who had written a letter to her family, and she shared that letter with anyone who wanted it to be able to make it their own. And that way it helped. She did it to protect her friends, because other friends were asking her friend, you know, what's going on? And so she said the letter directly from them helped to clarify, we're moving forward. We will be calling our son he and him. And here's the difference between transgender and, you know, being, you know, LGB, you know.
QAI.
Right.
Oh, anyway, yeah.
So, but there, you know, that it's an identity and a gender identity, not a sexuality aspect of it. So that letter, when it went out, I sent it in an email. Well, first, for those that were very close, I traveled to and had a personal conversation with them, and they were all very loving and accepting and gracious. My parents were the last people I told, because that is, I think, as with the transgender people, that they will say the hardest people to tell are your parents. And they were very loving and accepting. So the letter then went out after having conversations with immediate family, and then in an email, and it was just an awesome response of love. And the unconditional love part, once that started, it just made things so much easier, and you love them no matter what, and you've got their back. And so it was, don't get me wrong, it was hard. But the letter also helped. Say if you ran into someone at the grocery store that didn't know, you also had that, you never knew when it was going to come up again, that, well, ask how your child is. Oh, well, and then you have that explanation.
Yeah.
So once you have a dialogue that you are comfortable with, and to say it, and saying it several times, it got easier and easier. So, but the gracious patience of everyone was, I'm thankful for it, very thankful for it.
I'll start with my mother, who's the only living grandparent on Morgan's side. She said that she would never call Morgan a he. That was the first thing. However, they have a great relationship. So my mother is very kind to Morgan. It just is hard to use the proper pronouns. But we also believe that because of the elderly age, we don't know if she'll ever understand.
Right.
So we are very gracious with my mother. I wish that she could understand, because she was there all of Morgan's life, and that was always a little boy. So that's been kind of hard for me. I do correct my mom on the pronouns, by the way. So, but as far as the other two siblings go, Miranda is right in the middle of Morgan and Mallory, and she's cisgender, and it's been hard for her to accept having a brother versus a sister. And yet she's come around a long ways, and I'm very proud of her. And then our youngest, Mallory, who's 18, is gay. She's beautiful, just wonderful daughter. And she's been also very accepting, obviously, because she's among the community as well. And so Mallory and Morgan get each other. They have a great relationship, and they talk more often. So as far as the family dynamics go, it's been a long road, and we're still on that.
So, like I said, Luke, we were at the grocery store, and he told me that he was trans, and we were headed to a Mother's Day dinner.
Luke came out at the grocery store.
Yes. It was,
Okay.
it was great. We were in the produce section. It was perfect. It couldn't have been, it was great. Can you hand me that apple also? Yeah. So, so he wanted to tell me before we went to dinner, because he was going to, tell everybody at dinner. And he didn't just stand up in the middle of the room and just, say it out loud. Excuse me. He told people or whatever. And my family was just amazing. They're just amazing. And so I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful that, everybody, me and my mom, we helped each other through it, during that time.
I want to talk about something that's maybe a little bit personal, but as if none of this is personal. I know as a parent, I've had 3 daughters, when you're holding that tiny baby, well, it's easy for your imagination to start and you think about what the future holds for this child, and you wonder, will they grow up and go to college, and will they get married, and will they have children? And it's easy to envision this sort of ideal future for this child. And then something like this comes along, and you realize, oh, the future that I envision for this child is not the future this child is going to have. And so as a parent then, you kind of have to go through a grieving process where you grieve the loss of the child you thought you had so that you can embrace the child you actually have. Can you tell us a little bit about what that grieving process was like for you?
For me, that really sums it up. It's definitely, and at first I felt really bad because I felt bad, because I just wanted to be happy for my kid, but there were so many things on the inside that I was sad about, even, the name and, just a family name. And, oh, well, does that mean that he'll never have grandchildren? Just some of that. I talked a little bit about the grace part before, about how Luke showed me that grace. I think a big part of it for me was I had to remember that I had to show myself grace as well, because it definitely is like a grieving process that I had to work through. But the very first time I was actually at a conference, a parent conference with Sally and a bunch of great people. And the first time that I was able to say out loud, my son Luke, it was like I had this backpack carrying these bricks, and it was just weighing me down. And the first time that I did that, it was just such a great breath.
Coming to full acceptance is a weight off your shoulders. I will not say that I did not cry buckets of tears, because it's a grieving process, like you said. We haven't lost our children, though. They're still here. And it's coming to the realization, I'd rather my son lives authentically and happy as himself, because I can wallow in my pain. But what about the pain of him living in a body that did not belong for so many years, my pain is lessened to see what kind of pain he must have been going through. And so I will never say it wasn't hard, but full acceptance and loving them for who they are and who their brain says they are, it's all worth it.
Without a doubt, the grieving process happened, and I made 3 phone calls to people once I was at that point of I'm going to accept, which meant I was going to leave behind the expectations that you mentioned, Sally being one of them, who gave me, I don't remember what she said, but you know her voice, and you know how she can just melt away your fears and anxiety and reassure you, and she did. I, as you said, Gayla, cried, and I really felt like a lot of people moved on a lot easier than I did. Maybe that's not true, but it was a grieving process for sure. Hard, but not impossible, because once you see what your acceptance does for the heart of your child and how they move on and how they can go and be their authentic selves and really just flourish. It was hard, but it was worth it. I would do it again. I would absolutely embrace them and say, live and be who you are.
And I agree with all of that. And the grieving process, and Jordan would probably say, what are you grieving? That would be, I'm still sitting right here. And I think too, having 2 other children that didn't do what I wanted them to do either, also helped. They didn't go to school like I said. They didn't really do anything that I thought they were going to do or expected that they were supposed to do at first. So I think in that way, those expectations that I knew, transgender or straight or whatever, they were not going to do what I wanted them to do. So for expectation purposes. But yes, the grieving process, and I think with that grieving, and with Jordan, I remember, and this was a special moment for her too, when we were calling her she, and she wanted to be rebaptized as God sees her. And Sally baptized her right there.
Did this create any tension between you and your spouse? Because not everybody processes everything at the same time. Not everybody comes to the point of acceptance at the same time, and sometimes did that create any tension for any of you?
There wasn't tension. It was a very difficult time in our marriage, simply because I was processing things at a different rate than John was. But we still openly communicated about how we were feeling and how we were dealing with it. And I think that was key to both finally getting on the same page.
Yeah. So Dyke is my second husband, and when I was dating him, I didn't want to say anything about having a child that was lesbian, because I didn't want him to not totally love him for that. And I just remember he said, he kept asking me questions, and he just wanted me to say it because he knew already. And so when we got married, I don't think that Luke had come out as trans yet, but he's been so supportive of that and of him, and he says it a lot. He's like, yeah, he's my favorite of all the kids, just because of his heart.
I would say that my husband was processing on the analytical, logical level, which is how he processes things, and he was supportive. I was a basket case for a while, just because my emotions, and there was not tension, but there was a different, like you said, a different pace at which things occurred for him and for me.
Same thing. Toby definitely processed it and figured it out faster than I did. He was, much more gracious and just loving, that unconditional love so much. And I was the one asking all the questions, and he was like, "Well, that's what it is." So him and Abigail are a lot alike.
I'd also like to point out that John was a minister, so he was in church leadership, and it was harder for the kids to come to him, in particular about what was happening with both Mallory, our gay daughter, and Morgan being trans. They didn't want Dad to lose their job, and so the conversations kept coming to me. And then I would relay those to him. And he'd say, "How come they're not coming to me to talk to me?" But eventually there has been open conversation, but that also was a source of trying to process together.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How did this impact, let's start with God. How did it impact your relationship with God?
I have a stronger relationship with God because I know that God has put us on a path to an awareness, helping other people, other families, of awareness of the LGBT community and how much they deserve to be loved and accepted. And so I see it as our ministry, and I believe God is working diligently in our lives. I have a different view of church and Christians because I have been disappointed by so many of them.
Sure. Was that instantaneous? I'm assuming it wasn't, that you weren't like, oh, well, thank God that this happened, because now my relationship with God's going to be so much stronger, and now I have this amazing ministry. Hooray! I'm guessing it wasn't like that immediately.
No, it's definitely not immediately. It's more like, why God?
Okay.
Why?
So there was a time period where...
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And is that fairly consistent across the board here?
I would say that it forced me to really read the Bible and look at those passages and re-examine everything that I thought I knew, or everything that I had been taught. And sad to say that with LGBTQ, I never really thought about it because it didn't affect me personally. So didn't really need to. So didn't really have to go deep into that until it's personal.
I didn't grow up in church, and so I didn't have all of the pre-taught, all of the things that a lot of people grow up with. So that made a big difference in my relationship with Christ. I've had a rocky road, heading in my own life, and so this wasn't like the biggest obstacle of my life. And so it really just brought us closer after questioning and all of that. But I think it's kind of a blessing not to have all of the stuff that people that grow up in church have, because I just looked at Jesus and thought, okay, well, we're supposed to love people, all people, and everybody has a seat at this table. And so that's where my mind automatically goes. And so I'm, even though I'm a minister now, I still spend every second that I can, letting everybody know that you have a place at this table, no matter what.
Cassie?
I'm thankful for the experience now because it made me laser focus on what's important. I cared not about theology or anything other than I knew God loved me so God loves everybody else. I mean, to me, that was my logical thinking. And if somebody had another thought, then I just said, well, here, I couldn't go outside of that one statement held me in place, or that one thought, and it brought me to a better place, because I grew up in a conservative Church of Christ, and the teaching was what you expect in a conservative Church of Christ. And I just didn't know. I had no exposure to it, and accepting that there was another way to think, and you could look at something in more than one way, it's been very helpful to me spiritually. And I would say I've seen God in a whole different way.
Gayla, you mentioned this, and I want to expand on it a little bit. God has been constant, but God's people have not. And it was difficult for you, I'm sure, because your husband, that was his livelihood. And so there was this, I'm sure there was some kind of tension there. How do we share this with our church family? Then there was the assumption that they were your family, and then there was this letdown. Can you talk a little bit about what that letdown was like for you?
We were obviously going through a very long process, and we had done research. We had read articles, we had talked with others, we had gone to the Peace Prince retreat and learned so much from so many fabulous people, the love and the support. So we had been going through this process, and so when we publicly basically said we support our child transitioning, I guess part of me just thought everybody was going to jump on board with us, but that's not the way it happened, because they have to go through the process, and the people aren't going to go through the process until they have skin in the game or a child in the game. So you're not forced to think about it until you need to, and so they had not thought about it. They had already come to their conclusions. They considered that a lifestyle that's not appropriate, and that's not right. So I guess it was shocking to them, and so they reacted in a shocking way and started questioning us as a family, and my husband as a minister of the gospel, and they declared doctrinal differences and let him go from the church. That's what I mean by being disappointed.
Sure.
And they were my family, and many of them still are my family. We have 6 or 7 families that left that congregation when John was let go, and have been very supportive of us.
So you had kind of a mixed bag there. You had some people who rejected you, and then you had some people who embraced you.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What was the experience like for the rest of you in terms of your church connections?
Mine, I worked at the church at the time and have for 10 years, and they've been when Luke comes up to the office, everybody just, well, they don't hug him now because of COVID, but
Sure. Yeah.
before it, he's absolutely accepted there, and so that's good. There's, being on a leadership team, there's good times to have conversation. I think that having that opportunity because I do have skin in the game, and they've known Luke his whole life, and not as Luke, but they've known him, and so it's kind of like an opportunity because they have skin in the game too. They just don't really understand that, and so I try my hardest to be a voice for for equality, for to be able to have that opportunity as everybody else does.
I was the office manager at the church where we were, and had worked there for 6 or 7 years. had attended the congregation for 6 or 7 years before that. So basically everybody had known Wes since he was 2. Smaller congregation. When we transitioned, when he transitioned and made it more public, there was just love. If there was a negative, I didn't hear it and I didn't sense it. And the people were supportive of me and of Wesley. I would say, he did not feel comfortable though in going, though everybody loved him and and accepted him. So it was. I'm thankful for the way it has turned out and that they were supportive, because that was important to him.
Our experience, it was difficult. When we told the elders, and then we were brought in, and they were talking to us about, well, what does that mean? Is Jordan going to be dressing as a woman? Is Jordan going to bring a boyfriend to church? Those kind of things. Those were some hard conversations that that didn't always end very well. They had not been on the same journey we were on, and we're not ready to jump on that bandwagon. And when you get brought in and asked those questions, it was hard, and so we did leave, and Jordan is actually here in Dallas now because of church, because South Louisiana is very difficult to find LGBT friendly churches with youth or college age and things like that. And so we wanted her to have a church family that that loved her. So that's why she's here.
Looking back, what could those church leaders have done differently? What do you wish they had done differently?
I wish that they would love everyone, that there wouldn't be conditional love. I feel like my 18-year-old at the time was in the youth group, and they knew she was gay and they loved her, but then once the church let us go, hardly anybody reached out to her. I wish people would see that the silence is deafening. To not say anything, or to say, we love you, we don't want you to go, you're welcome here, that says it all. And I just, of course they say, well, you can stay and worship with us, but you don't really feel welcome.
You have to sit over there and we're all going to stare at you.
Yeah, y'all have a weird family. I don't, that's what you make me feel like by not saying anything. Yeah. And so I wish that churches would just embrace the families, embrace the community, and say all are welcome. All are God's children.
Absolutely. It's not just our kids that are LGBTQ. It's their siblings. It's all the other kids that watch and they listen and they know, and I'm thankful for like our preacher and people that speak truth to everybody. But it's not just our kids that are part of that community. It's everybody, and they see whether they are accepted or not, if their sibling is accepted, if their friend who they know at school. And if we don't start having hard conversations with our people in our churches, they're going elsewhere. They're getting the information somewhere else, and they're getting the love and acceptance from somewhere else. And if we want our kids to continue to be part of our churches, then we need to open up those conversations. And they're hard. They're hard conversations. We opened up Broadway to let women do things now, and that was a hard conversation and people left, but I mean, in the long run, that's what's most important, the people, what we believe. Are we really going to be like Jesus and love everyone and let everyone have a seat at this table, or not, and watch all our families leave and all our kids leave?
Ladies, anything that you wish church leaders would have done differently?
I agree with Gayla, just that unconditional love and just acceptance.
Was there in your own process, was there an aha moment? Was there a moment when the sort of the dots connected or the light bulbs came on for you? Or was it just more of a slow dawning?
I would say a slow dawning for me.
I didn't know the term gender dysphoria. And once we began to understand kind of the science for trans people and the connection between their brain and what their body shows on the outside, gender dysphoria is very real. And when I actually read an article by Joni Lee Jack called Unfolding Miracles. And that, I wouldn't say that, I would say that's my aha moment. Okay. I was like, whoa, this is real. This is not something Morgan has made up in his mind. And I am going to do my research. That, and also when we went to CenterPeace, surrounded by other families, for them to say, that is not a choice that those people are making. That's not a lifestyle choice. That is who they believe they are. Their feelings are their feelings. Same-sex attraction is because they are truly attracted to the same sex. All of that was aha moments for me. I did not realize that.
When I finally had the opportunity to have conversations with Luke and actually listen to several stories and just things that he had gone through as a child, things that I had no idea about, struggles that he had within him, when I stood right next to him and didn't know that. And he didn't have words or labels to be able to talk about all of those feelings, but having that conversation, and sometimes that's what it is. It's just about having conversations and listening. Those were the aha moments for me when I see how happy he is. It makes my heart happy to see his heart happy and full, because that's who he is.
One of the mothers who is watching us just texted, she finds herself looking at old photographs and she misses that version of her child. What would you say to that mom?
Give yourself grace. That's absolutely, it's okay. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to, but also talk to your child and listen more than talk.
And those pictures, grieving, that child is going to continue to grow up. So you can grieve a child who's transgender or straight, or, they're not going to stay little forever. They're going to grow up. So I always say, be in the moment. For any parent, be in that moment and enjoy that moment right there. And don't dwell on what you think should have happened or what you think could have been, because you don't know what could have been, and you don't know what great things can be.
That's very true. What she just said. Yeah. And the pictures, I did at one point. I said, today's the day. I'm going to take down all the pictures that would depict the previous gender as we knew it. And again, it's hard, cried, but I also knew what it meant to him to do that. And as Gayla was saying earlier, it took time. When people say, you know, you grieve that child, but you also look at how long that child waited and how much they may have suffered inside to want to tell you exactly who they are and not be able, and they didn't feel like they could do that. So just identifying with that struggle on from their perspective helped me to take the pictures down. I didn't throw them away, but I took them down where they were not out in on the shelf. So just trying to be seeing it from their perspective was very helpful to me to be able to do what I knew would help him.
Those memories of that child are still real, and revel in that. Those were good moments. Those are good memories. I didn't realize that I needed to take pictures away until Morgan came for a visit, and when he was there, all the pictures were turned over face down. And I realized, oh, he doesn't want to see himself as that. And so I had to respect that and put the pictures away for the sake of him being authentically who he is. But he also saw himself as a tomboy. You know, we can look at scrapbooks and he goes, see, I was always a boy. You know, and that's true. He really always was.
There are some ministers who are watching, and one of them has just texted, and he wants to know what can I do? What do you need from a minister? What do you need in a minister? What do you need from a minister? What's the most helpful thing they could do?
Conversation. Talk and ask us.
Being willing to have a hard conversation and asking a question, or we all know how stories can help and change people. So they're a great resource. Listen to my story, and I think you'll find something in my story that you can relate to. So being willing to do that and intentionally take the time to do it.
Brian just texted, and he says, I'd like to hear your perspective on how you discussed this with the grandparents. He says, my parents are not welcoming or affirming. My in-laws are welcoming and closer to affirming every day. He wants to know, do you have any feedback on how long the process was from the grandparents' perspective, and how you can help those grandparents through this process?
Great question. My mom and dad were listened and supported, but it was difficult, especially for my mom, various reasons, but I'll just leave it at that. She tried her hardest, and she loved Wesley. There was no question about that, but it was just a difficult thing. My in-laws were supportive. Took a minute to get on board for just not understanding what's really going on, and just having the conversation. And that is so hard. I didn't do a great job of it, and I would like to have done a better job of, I guess I was questioning whether they would accept or not. And rejection, as we all know our kids have faced, is a tough thing to stand in front of and face. So I think just the grandparents, depended on age too. We have grandparents that were a wide range of ages, and so it would depend also on how your relationship is at the, with before, and if you could approach the conversation.
I think you just have to have patience and grace. And you, Cassie, bringing up rejection. I don't think grandparents want to reject their grandchildren. I mean, I hope not. I have to be reminded there's not very many years left. We need to enjoy the moments we do have together and not get stuck on things that don't really matter. Why can't that child live as a boy or a girl? Who's that hurting? And let's just value ourselves as a family and take advantage of the time we have.
And I would say too, maybe if he's having trouble with that conversation, what Cassie said about the letter, writing a letter is good. Sometimes you going before your child and having those conversations with those grandparents prior to, and then having the child come, sometimes that makes it a little easier, so it doesn't seem like such a shock to them. They've heard the words before, they maybe they understand the terms, and you've explained to them, what does that mean and what is that going to look like in your family. And if you do that prior to, and then have your child come in and talk to the grandparents, that it may help lessen that bumpy road a little bit.
I would say yes. That's. I think Wes would always. I went before and had the conversation, and then he, or my husband and I would go before, and then he would say, "Well, what did they say? How did that go?" And so that was, I think, very helpful to him and to the parents or grandparents that you're telling this to. I think it's helpful because they're not right there in the room, and if you have questions or your response is not what you really thought it would be, you can, yeah.
Well, and I think also we need to, there's some people that are in our family that pretty much said, well, don't tell your grandma that because, she can't handle it or whatever. You're not allowed to tell, and so we need to give our children the opportunity, and it's their life, and they, even though it's hard, they're allowed to choose to not have contact with those people, and I know that's hard, but we're our children's advocates, no matter how old they are, and we stand with them, and so even in hard things like that, so let them lead that.
What's your relationship with your kids like now?
Awesome.
Now that Jordan's almost out of the teenagers, it's much better. much better. Yes. No. It's been a good journey. And when you asked me about the aha moment, I kind of just thought of one that when she came out of the bathroom with her makeup done, I was like, "Who did your makeup?" "Me." I was like, "Oh, that's really good." Aha.
There we go. Yeah.
We have a good relationship. We fought for so many years, and Morgan got the pushback from me for so long. It's very nice to be friends and have adult conversations now, and to accept one another. So it's a good relationship.
Ours is great. It's especially during days like this, weekends where we get to go and do things together and have opportunities to share together. But it's I'm really happy about our relationship and the time that we get to spend together.
Sometimes well-intentioned adults, whether they're teachers at school or coaches or youth ministry folks or people at church or one of your child's friends, parents, or even grandparents, want to sit your child down and say, now here's what you're really going through. And how do you like build a barrier around your kids to protect them from someone else, whether it's a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, from preaching at your kids? How do you prepare them for that, and how do you protect them from that?
The letter served as our boundary in that we are standing with our son. We will carry forward in this way. We hope that you'll join us, but if you can't right now, you know, there's time, there's grace, but here's where we are, and here's what we're going to do, and that's a boundary that we hope that you respect.
Yeah, that's how, once we told my parents and my sisters, and one of my other sisters, she already knew. Jordan had told her a long time ago. And once we did that, then I did the Facebook thing, and I put the post out to the rest of the family and said, here it is, and that's it. And, you know, take it or leave it.
I think with my kids, I tried really hard to make sure that they had a voice for themselves, and so none of them have a hard time just saying out loud whatever it is that they feel or want to say. And so I think that helps too. If we make sure that our kids, it's good to protect them, and it's good to do that, but we need to equip them with words and with the ability to stand up and speak the words that they want to say, that they need to say to protect themselves.
Well, Morgan would have no problem standing up for himself. I'll just defer to him, because Morgan has all the facts, and it's him that you're talking about. I will say that I have a new nickname in my home, and I'm Mama Bear, because Mama Bear will come out and let you know that you can't mess with my cubs, and I support them. And I'll say, do your own research if you need to, but we're here to ask questions or answer questions. But I think I feel that way mostly for my 18-year-old, because she doesn't speak out as much, so Mama Bear speaks for her more often, but Morgan can hold his own.
For a lot of parents and moms, I think in particular, although that's not necessarily true, I think dads feel this as well. When you're navigating something like this, it can feel like I'm the only one. And maybe you are the only one in your church that who is openly having to deal with this. How important has it been for you to find community like this?
This has been amazing. I am so excited to have other moms that even though all of our stories are different, man, we have the same stuff. And it's just so great to be able to reach out to one of them and ask a question, or know that we're not alone. We're walking this road together. And so this is great. The Sally Gary retreat that I went on, me and my husband did, changed our lives. I mean, it's amazing to be able to do that, and find community, find it wherever you can.
I have a lot of online groups, private mom groups, moms of LGBT kids, moms of transgender kids, and some are Christians, some are not, but you can openly talk there. It's really nice.
I would just say that it was the point at which I could actually express it verbally at a couple of meetings. One was at the Walmering's house, and one was at Sally Gary's house, where I could speak what was going through my heart, through my mind, and to hear it out loud was like, okay, I can breathe again. Because it does for so long, it felt like. And then to finally say it was just that was a moment at which I can absolutely remember that it was right.
And I agree with that. And the Peace Prince, the retreat, Toby and I had gone to, a retreat. Um, and it was nice to know that, no, you're not the only parents that are dealing with. And then Jordan also went to the tapestry retreat, but Toby took her because she was not 18 yet. And you had to have a parent with you. And, that helps too, to see the perspective of other transgender and LGBT, not just your child, but other people too, their perspective. So that does help.
And we also, I'm a part of a parent group in Lubbock, and if there's not one in your area, make one, because it helps a lot to be able to get together monthly and just sit with other parents that they may not go through the same things that I'm going through, but it's a great place to belong and be yourself and just take things off your chest.
There was a day, there was an hour, there was a moment when your life changed, when your child had this conversation with you. If you could go back in time and tell yourself something that morning, before the conversation took place, if you could travel back in time and say, hey, later today in the produce section at the grocery store, this thing is going to happen. I want you to know this. What would you go back in time and tell yourself?
Breathe. Take a breath. Just breathe.
Don't say the wrong thing.
Which is easier said than done, right? What would you have told yourself is the wrong thing? Like what?
Oh, I said all kinds of wrong things. Oh, it's just a phase. You're confused. Let's give this some time. No, God made you as this, and you need to be that. I didn't know, and I wish I had known more how to be loving, accepting, patient, kind, to just listen instead of react.
I would like to have told myself to don't think it's all about you, to listen and go with your heart, not necessarily what you feel like other people think you should do or feel or say, because there was someone who gave me some advice about what I should say, and I said it, but it wasn't the right thing to say. He forgave me and loved me anyway, but I would like to have told myself, go with your heart and don't worry about what others are going to say or think. Support your child and know that that's the right thing.
And mine's actually the opposite of Gayla. I was so scared to say the wrong thing that I said, okay, I'm going to call a counselor. And then we didn't talk about it for a week because we didn't have an appointment for a week. And Jordan says that silence was, but I was so scared to say the wrong thing.
When I said, I told Luke the first time, when he was 12, I was like, yeah, you're too young to know that. I mean, you're just too young. And so I wish that I would have had a different conversation at that time.
Well, Gretchen, Cassie, Gayla, Camille, thank you so much for being brave enough to say some of these things out loud. Thank you for loving our viewers, and thank you for loving your kids as well as you have. You have shown us sometimes what not to do and what not to say, and you've warned us of some possible potholes that we can now avoid. But one thing you have clearly demonstrated is there is a ferocity to the way a mother loves her children. And I am so grateful for your presence here. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
If I could just add that I think any of us would be open to anyone who felt like they wanted to contact us in a one-on-one setting, or
that's great.
that we would be more than happy to talk or
So
have a conversation.
One of the things we'll do then is we'll maybe put some contact information in the forums that we have online, and in some notes for this breakout session. We'll make sure that you have access to these 4 women, and they can certainly point you to other resources. So we're going to take a break now. It is 11:11, which I guess time to make a wish, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to make a wish. It's 11:11. We're going to be back in here at 11:30 for our final plenary session. If you have any questions about the content that we've covered so far, you can certainly add that into the forums that are online. Please continue to make good use of those, and enjoy your break, and we'll see you at 11:30.